I want to talk about the psychological element and the psychological environment that is part of the homeless equation. And it works like this. So desire minus pain equals action. Now, desire for something, meaning there isn't a single person who, providing they're sane, doesn't have some semblance of some good actions to take. Go interview another nonprofit, get out your phone and study YouTube videos that can help your career. It's not hard to figure out how to do something that's reasonably intelligent. So then, why isn't the elderly cancer survivor that I met on 3rd Street a couple of weeks responding to his email? Why isn't he updating a link on his website, which I offered to help him with? There's healthy action towards a positive future, minus the anticipated and the felt pain that is involved in taking that action. It's called friction. And we all deal with this. Every single one of us is tired at some point, doesn't want to do this. Just look at what it takes to sit down and make this video. I've got to go and prepare. I've got to, go to the bathroom first. I've got to make sure my hair isn't more disheveled than usual. And turn on the lights, set up a camera. There's the impulse to take a healthy action, and then there's friction. And for those of us with health challenges, the friction is higher. And at some point, the friction, the pain that one encounters, is higher than the action, and then you get stagnation. You get the phenomena of people getting stuck. And this is terrible for everyone, because when you have chronic homelessness, when you have stuck action, well, it costs the Marin infrastructure $40,000 to $65,000 a year, depending on which numbers you want to use. The numbers are actually higher, though, because every single time we see a homeless person, particularly, like I've seen that person before and that person before, the message that's coming in is it's hopeless. That no one in our culture is responding to our elderly. Well, that's not a encouraging message, because the financial situation of the typical American may see them on the street in their old age. It's not like America is leading the world in savings, in ethical retirement funds. Retirement funds go bust all the time. Companies take a quick profit and lay off workers. Because when you're surrounded in the question, what can I do to make more money, helping the homeless never comes up. And so when we see chronic homelessness, there's some part of our brain that makes the connection. Aha. If my retirement fund goes bust, if I get a health problem, if I can't pay my medical bills, I could be like that old man. Day after day after day, with no one thinking that I'm worth it because I don't have money. That's a depressing thought. And it has an impact on everyone that sees that image. Maybe a very small impact, day after day after day after day. Maybe the impact doesn't hit until there is a financial crisis and you realize, oh my gosh, nobody has done something about that old man there for years. Is that what's going to happen to me? And so you have desire minus the friction of pain equals action. Now, just about all of us have experienced painful episodes, abusive episodes in childhood. And whether you have or whether you haven't, I know about that. But, fortunately or unfortunately, my abuse happened in a wealthy family, meaning I wasn't lacking for food or clothing or travel or expensive housing. I lived in multiple continents and luxury, through all of my childhood. And that simply means when you are born into a wealthy family, if you want to, it means you know how to make money. It doesn't mean that you know how to feel good. Many wealthy people do not feel good. It doesn't mean that the abuse is not painful to remember. It never is. It doesn't mean that you have a safe family to go home to when the pain of engaging with those abuse patterns is more painful than living on the street. When you have, suicide is an important part of, it's the second leading cause of death in young people. And it's important to understand that most of this is not material. It's not materially based. People don't kill themselves for the most part because they can't get a meal. No, it's a psychological pain. And one of the things we have a blind spot around in our culture is we tend to equate happiness with, do you have granite countertops? Well, you should be happier. Do you, how big is your TV? What car do you drive? What's your salary? We've crossed these two things because we've given our media, and our media is our education system more than anything else. Kids study media, video games, and all that more than they study in school. And our media is funded by advertising. And, what's the advertiser's message? Buy this thing, buy this service, buy this pill, whatever it is, and you will be happy. Money equals happiness. It's not actually true, though, in the data. You can be surrounded in luxury, and you can even have high social status. That correlates more with happiness, meaning you have physical wealth, and your happiness goes up until you've got your bare needs met. And then, whether you've got $80,000 or $1 million or $1 billion. It doesn't change all that much. But your social status does. We measure rich people in our culture. And so you go up and you become rich, get on the Forbes 400 list, etc. Now you've got social status because we equate money with good and money with happiness, unscientifically, but we do it anyway. And then we say, oh, you're on that list. You must be an important, valuable person. And, this is why Trump lied about, his money to get on the list, because, the social status, to be a valuable, important person. You can't show that you're hemorrhaging money in your companies. And so that's just what we measure in this culture. Now, this is a bit demoralizing when bits of paper, you see, human beings create bits of paper called money, and then they, other human beings sell the idea that these bits of paper are very important because they allow their products to be sold. And they're not going to fund your free Facebook and your free Google and your free, discounted phones and your free television and your discounted movie prices and all that, unless you agree to be subjugated to a constant barrage of messages that all say the same thing. Buy what I want you to buy from me, and you'll be a cool, good, sexy, well-loved, important person. Don't buy it and you'll be a complete loser. And to the degree that that message can be put forth and bought into is to the degree that you can get people to work harder and harder for things they don't need, to give money to the people, selling the advertisement. So that's our system. It's Milton Friedman said there's no such thing as a free lunch. And he's right. You want all this free media, you pollute your entire psychology with a myth that material things are more important than human beings, because no advertiser is ever going to go on there and tell you the truth, which is that your friends, which is the quality of trustworthiness that you bring to the relationship, that's what determines your friends, not your money. I'm not talking about social climbing. I'm talking about friendship. Friendship is not determined by money. It's not determined by things. It's determined by the care, consistency, and decency with which you treat other people. That's it. If you treat 100 people decently and well, if you never lie, if you show respect, out of that 100 people, there's going to be a few trustworthy friends. In America, it's just going to be a few. In other cultures, more. And of those, they will value you for your friendship and will show up for you with a trustworthy demeanor. Now, this will create what Abraham Maslow calls the third hierarchy of human needs: love and belonging. Survival, security, love, and belonging. This creates happiness. It creates a rich life, a life worth living. Friendship. But it doesn't make anyone any money, and so it doesn't get advertised. And so what we have is a country that consistently sells out its friends in order to buy into the social climbing and the social status that comes from making more money. In other words, investing less in friendship, rushing out and making more money and then buying more things so that we're supposedly more popular, etc. But, you know, the equation doesn't quite add up. Now, this is one of the first things that hurts human beings, because when we buy into the idea that whoever has the Lamborghini, that's an important person. Why? Because they have a noisy car that's difficult to get into. Because they guzzle more gas than anyone else. Because they looked good on the commercial. I mean, what's exactly the status? It's quite a selling job, and it's very impressive psychology. I mean, our advertisers know more about the human brain and neurochemistry and psychology than anyone on the planet, because we don't value our children enough to teach them psychology, the science of emotions, the science of motivation, the science of relationships. It's not worth teaching to our children, but it's worth teaching to advertisers. It's kind of a bizarre message. So desire minus pain equals action. Our homeless are in a lot of pain. And so, some of that is motivational, but a lot of that is, it's like, yes, they have to get up and haul their shopping cart and do this and that and the other, and it's just exhausting. To take a goal, to move a leap, to leap towards the future is quite difficult. So what I want to talk about is a specific kind of pain. It's the pain of being used, addictively or otherwise, for something else. So we're all human beings, and we all have this hierarchy of human needs to survive, to be secure in that survival, and to experience love and belonging. We have this need. Now, love and belonging, and to be loving, is, in its mature form, a process of supporting one another to climb these needs. If I want to be loving to you, and you don't have a safe legal place to sleep, the first step is to see that you have a safe legal place to sleep. The next step is to see that you have food and water. Now, once you've got a safe legal place to sleep, food and water, well, then you've got sanitary, a place to go to the bathroom. Then the question is that secure? Do you feel that you can retain that with confidence? Or will it be taken away from you? This is the next level, it's security. And what we're looking at is the traumatic area of the brain. See, this is not granite countertops. It's not about tents, it's not about luxury villas. It has nothing to do with building codes. A safe, legal place to sleep, some hot soup, a toilet, and the security that this will not be taken away from you. Survival and security in survival. This is what keeps you out of the traumatic area of the reptilian brainstem. So if you have this, a tent that no one is going to violate, a stable mechanism to make your soup, you're done. You're out of the reptilian brainstem. Now, from this point forward, oh, sure, granite countertops, here we come. But we haven't had granite countertops. We haven't had fire sprinklers. We haven't had special alkaline water purifiers. We haven't had that for the last 200 million years. You go anywhere on the planet 500 years ago, and other than less than 1%, you're not going to have anything close to that luxury. And those people, many of them were in less stress than you and I are today. Potato farmer in a little shack goes out, hoes potatoes all day long. Knows where his house is. No one's going to take it away from him. Well, you have the the tribal marauding kind of thing. You have that tribal marauding element. But there's no building official that's going to come and say, your corner of your house is eaten by termites. Go out into the street. You don't have you can't sleep in your own shack or anything. No, there's stability in that survival. There were also fewer single people a few hundred years ago, which brings then to the third area, the sense of love and belonging. In our biology, referencing the chimp-monkey arenas within human development, our biology is that of a pack mammalian species. So if you watch herds of monkeys, you'll see them grooming each other, talking to each other all the time, watching out for each other, threatening, looking out for threats. This is our sense of belonging, and it involves touch. Oxytocin is released when you have a 7-second hug. It's one of the reasons in a touch-phobic culture, meaning the average single American is not going to have 3 7-second hugs a day. They're going to have less touch than a chimp, less touch than an orangutan. And they're not going to have as much exercise also. The chimp and the orangutan, etc., are going to move more, jumping, leaping. Now this brings our brain chemistry into a healthier state where we feel more confident, more alive, and you don't have to go to a gym. So the combination of exercise and touch and social engagement determines about 30% of the feeling of well-being. The feeling of well-being helps decrease pain. When you help decrease pain, you poise the person for action. Because when you wake up in the morning tired, and all you see all day is pain after pain after pain in artificial conditions, there's not a lot of exercise, there's not a lot of touch, there's not a lot of security and open-ended space. There's a tight compression of time and schedule, etc. It's one of the reasons chronic fatigue, depression, is high in our culture. And it's one of the reasons that our homeless get stuck. Because what do they have to look forward to. Being ignored, and you see, this is the pain part that I want to deal with. Ignored because of money. Now imagine you're a veteran who is drafted into Vietnam, and you come back and you weren't prepared for this. First of all, you got addicted to drugs over there because it's the only thing that got you through the day, and the military turned a blind eye. And in Vietnam and Thailand, where the bases were, a large supply of cheap drugs. And over there, that's just fine, but not when you come back. Now, one of the things that we do in our culture is keeping busy, right? That's our protocol for dealing with pain, grief, loss, etc. Just keep busy. Well, you're pretty busy when you're fighting a war. But when you get home in a wheelchair, not so much. So now all that pain hits you as your withdrawal symptoms hit you, as the shame of the culture that doesn't like the fact that you've been burning men, women, and children alive with napalm hits you, as the memory in PTSD over and over again of those friends that you lost, as that hits you. This is a lot of pain. And when a muffler goes off and a door slams, and every time you're shocked, expecting to be killed, and nobody pays any attention. This is a very unregulated culture. If these people, our Vietnam vets got to experience Asian culture, Thai culture, where there was a lot of courtesy and presence. That's not how we raise our children here. So it creates conflict between the need, the psychological need for healing, and the environment that they're in. Many of our veterans commit suicide. One person I said it's up to 1 every 20 minutes. That's how much pain we engender, and it's important to be aware of the fact that we stand out as a mammalian species. You don't see lions committing suicide. You don't see deer committing suicide. Raccoons, no. They're not in as much pain as we are. And so it's important to acknowledge that this pain is a human phenomena. It's important to acknowledge that. So, for me personally, the biggest pain is the message that people are not valuable, that money or status or position is valuable. Human beings are not valuable. The humanity that is in you and I isn't as important as the cars we drive, the jobs we occupy, the money in our bank account. Money more than people. Agendas around money more than people. Now, this is a painful message for me when I'm rich. And let's face it, anyone with a house and a job in Marin County is rich relative to 95% of the rest of the world. Now, it's easy to go. If you go to Copenhagen, you'll see a 400% higher quality of life than the average American. It's easy to find places that are rich. Just being there is a global lottery ticket. You won the lottery to be This is the 5th wealthiest county in the United States. So you're here. As far as quality of architecture, quality of roads, governments that actually answer the telephone, you're rich. But there's still a message, as evidenced by our chronic homeless, that what makes you valuable is your money. It's not just money. It's the education that money can buy. It's the things that money can buy. It's the prestige and success that money can buy. I mean, what's the difference between me and, if you spend some time, you'll find an incredible amount of intelligence amongst our homeless. They know things that we don't know. They know things that we don't like looking at. They can't afford not to look at those things. It's a very rich dialogue to spend a few hours with a homeless person in our county. But who does? I mean, I can't talk with one of them without learning something I didn't know. But who does? You see, I've never done it before. I did it as part of this documentary project, and that also ties in a little bit with our culture. Everything has to have a secondary agenda. It's one of the things that I run into. As soon as the homeless realize that I've got an agenda, that I want to film them, they're tired of people having an agenda that has something other than the direct response as a human being to a human being to their well-being. And that's the pain. And I want to talk about this thing of value and betrayal. Because when you're abused, there's always a betrayal to another agenda that's valued higher. It's valued higher than your well-being. When you're beaten, when you're lied to, when you're abandoned, when you're shamed, when your needs are ignored, there's always an agenda that is valued more than your safety and well-being. Now, this doesn't matter if it's your parents, if it's your teachers, if it's your government. It doesn't matter if it's the general public. When these things happen, someone has an agenda, and it's always a fear agenda, meaning you don't have healthy people who are absolutely certain that they will be loved and cared for as a human being, who know how to love and care as a human being, who are certain of their abundance in the future. You don't have these people rape the homeless, steal their money, become drug addicts, and then betray people for the drugs. No. It takes a fear agenda that is valued higher than another person's well-being. It takes a fear agenda in order to betray another human being. Now, the fear agendas that we create can be, fairly sophisticated. I'm afraid I won't be valued. I'm afraid that I'll be all alone. I'm afraid I'll be all alone in this pain and no one will be there for me in this pain. I'm scared I'll get sick and no one will pay my medical bills. I won't have enough to eat. I will be ignored and unimportant. I won't be popular. No one will want to know me. I'll be hurt and no one will protect me. These are the fears that we have as human beings and that motivate us to be more sociopathic to others in need. When we have these answers in abundance, we tend to be kind and helpful. Why not? Because it's no fun having to spend energy to ignore someone who's in pain, one, and it's no fun watching another person in pain. Meaning if you have a sense of joy, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, if you have some happiness and some health, it feels great to look around and engage with other people. And if you meet someone who's in pain, it feels horrible. It feels horrible to just, wow, this person is in an incredible amount of pain. And so the natural thing through the mirror neurons of the empathic brain, I'm not talking about the sociopathic brain. The sociopathic brain is the traumatic reptilian brain stem, which is fear-based. When your survival, security, love and belonging and self-esteem are in jeopardy, your odds go up exponentially of being in the reptilian brain stem, which is the sociopathic area of every one of our brains. The odds go up of being in the empathic and responsive area of all of our brains when these needs are met securely. Now, this is why it's so important to meet these needs securely. Now, to some extent, wealth correlates to the sociopathic area of the brain. Because what does it mean? What does it mean to be a 1%er, for example? What does it mean to have $55 billion in a culture in which there are single mothers with 3 children who the babysitter isn't safe for those kids, but they can't afford a better one. There's no time to bond with those children. What is it like to have $55 billion in such a culture where these people are all around you that need help? Well, in order to answer the question of why I need to have $55 billion and not do anything about that, one's got to be able to tune this out. You see, if you read Warren Buffett and the Business of Life by Alice Schroeder, it's a 36-hour read, but it's a good one. You find that the greatest investor of all time has a set routine, regardless of what else is going on, and is so focused on that, he had a lot of trauma as a child. His parents were not good parents. And so there's a lot of dissociation from that amount of pain. So when his own son is screaming, sprawled on the stairway and bleeding, Warren Buffett walks over his child and goes up the stairs and to do his normal routine. And that's why he's so successful. Single-minded focus, undistracted by other human beings and their suffering, undistracted by the pleasures of life and their addictive draw. He can get more done in that analytical sense than almost anyone else. The sociopathic brainstem, a coping mechanism for trauma, is one reason you can create and end up in the top 1%. If you study, some of the tycoons, whether it's Gates, in the early days, so Gates is responding a lot now with his fund, to help other people. You look in the early day, the obsessiveness, the sociopathic element. Early Microsoft people were some of the first people to experience deep burnout and chronic fatigue, and some of them died of exhaustion in the Microsoft work protocol. The relentless drive for more and more. And where does that come from? The message that success or prestige or education or money is more important than the felt sense as a human being than our humanity is a very painful message. It's very painful for me, and our homeless deal with it every day because they know that if they had $1 million, that every one of us would be treating them with respect and would be reacting to their needs as a customer of our businesses and services. Because if ex-homeless person inherits $1 million tomorrow, buys a house and wants to hire me to landscape their garden, am I going to respond? Sure. If ex-homeless person on the street reaches out, tries to make eye contact with 10,000 people with no money, who's going to show up for them? And is it going to be with pity and condescension or treating them as a human being? And that's the pain that they have to deal with. So you and I can pretend to some extent that we are important people innately. But you can't do that in this culture when 10,000 people have walked past you and said with their passivity and their behavior, you ain't worth shit because you don't have money. You can't hold on to the illusion that we value human beings when the only reason we treat someone that bad is they don't have money. There's no other reason. We take disheveled rich people. There's a billionaire on a TED Talk that likes Porsches and looks like a bum. Shaggy jeans, unkempt hair. We talk about how cool it is he's unpretentious. Isn't it great? He doesn't let anyone in the society determine who he is. Read the comments. It's wonderful. He hasn't been ruined by money. He looks however he wants, and he's a billionaire. Isn't it wonderful? How many people are saying that about our homeless? Look at them. They look however they want, and they have absolutely no money. What idiots. How ugly and unkempt and dirty and da-da-da-da-da. The only difference is the money. It's not even the appearance. Though, of course, many of our homeless people would look great. If they have a disability and a few million, they can hire a private groomer and makeup artist and all the rest, and we'll be complimenting them on looking young in their wheelchair. So this is a really big pain that every one of our homeless have to deal with. Waking up and knowing that they have very little odds of making or having money that day or the next day or the next day or the next day. That they're going to spend an extraordinary amount of energy just to survive. And that 90% of the people looking at them are not going to treat them as a human being because they don't have money. And that's painful. And that pain makes it harder for them to dream of the future, makes it harder for them to seek out long-term goals when it's just getting through the day. And yet all of us would benefit if they did have vision, if they did develop skills and look at ways to integrate those with our culture. We would benefit in so many ways. And yet we are the ones who determine that we are afraid of them, that we don't want to see them. We are the ones that create the pain threshold that is often too big to act through, too big to motivate through that amount of pain into a sustainable pattern of growth and development.